breakfast nook. Instead, it was its own space, sun-drenched thanks to a bank of picture windows, and easily accessible from the stove and oven, fridge and cutting board. Memaw had always believed that mealtimes weren't about one person serving the others, but about everybody working, eating, laughing and crying together. Closing her eyes, Morgan tried her best to tune into the sensation of her sip. She opened her eyes and looked at Emmett. "Notes of—" she tried, squinting and biting her lower lip as she gave it one more think. "Peach?" Hope lifted her mouth into a weak smile. Emmett referred to his laminated sheet. "If you're tasting fruit, then it must be—" Morgan groaned and squeezed her eyes shut. She felt like she was taking the SAT again. But as a 31-year-old whose future relied not on her ability to compute algebra, but on her skill at distinguishing Malbec from Riesling. "Moscato," she said at last. Of all the wines their little operation had made so far, Moscato was Morgan's favorite. It reminded her of summers on the farm, the easy, sweet days that stretched on endlessly. Their Moscato was perhaps going to be the best seller, once things got rolling, both with the vineyard and the winery and tasting services. "Ding, ding, ding!" Emmett squeezed her hand atop the table. "Notes of peach. What else?" The test wasn't over. "I'd say it's definitely sweet, lower acid, but it is crisp." He nodded encouragingly. Morgan went on. "The mouthfeel is more like sweet tea than whole milk, so it's light-bodied." "Can you be more specific?" "Yes." Morgan plucked the stem of her glass and lifted it first to her nose again, then to her lips. She took a longer sip this time. Again she let the liquid coat her tongue and slip behind her teeth before it slid down her throat. Her eyes remained closed. After several seconds, she said, "Crisp but delicate. Sweet with a light body and a smooth if short finish." She opened her eyes and smiled brighter at Emmett. He studied her soberly. "What?" Morgan's face started to fall. "You know this. You're doing great." Emmett laid the card down and picked up the glass Morgan had tasted from, sipping it too. "And so is this." It was a miracle. After just 2 weeks, Morgan and Emmett, together with help from Amber, Julia, Geddy, and Uncle Gerald, had fashioned a decent wine sampling from their very own supply of heritage fruit. What's more, Morgan could identify it. Everything related to the family business was shaping up nicely. Thanks to the heritage vines out at Uncle Gary's, they had the fruit. Thanks to Granddad's notes and Geddy's knowledge, they had the recipes. In fact, all of the batches of wine planned for the gala were mixed and ready. Some, like the one they were testing from now, were already fermented well enough to sample. No, the wine wasn't aged. That could only come with time, and it was a part of their vineyard and winery that Morgan knew needed to be established up front. Customers and guests would have to know that this business was only just emerging. The wine was, well, fresh. Not ideal, but it was genuine. It was a start. Now that everything was set and fermenting, all Morgan and her team could do was wait. Well, wait and pray. And plan. There was always more planning to be done. Morgan pulled a notepad and pen in front of her as Emmett finished the wine. "Okay, so we're looking at October 8th for a soft opening." "Soft opening," Emmett echoed. "What exactly does that mean?"